you wrote to your followers, 2024 is about getting wealthy in finance, health, mindset, relationships. This is the year of abundance in all areas of life. Do you think it's possible to master all of these at the same time, especially when you haven't made it yet?
Define made it. I define made it simply by being alive and by believing that you can become better, by having hope. I think that that's the first step. I think if you just have the perspective that you have opportunity to develop, I think that it's possible, because when you begin to think about wealth by definition, you have this concept, people are like, oh, this is a wealthy man or this is a wealthy family, but they're only talking about money. And wealth by definition isn't money alone, it's abundance. So what are the areas of your life that you're supposed to figure out or continue developing in order to develop this wealthy, well-rounded life? And this idea of, well, are you going to always get to the place of mastery? No, right? There's always somebody that's going to have more money. There's always going to be somebody that's more ripped. There's always going to be somebody that has a better looking girl. It's just inevitable that there's always somebody that's going to have potentially some perspectives or some aspects of their life that are better than yours. But I think having that focus of not being one dimensional, of being like, because you were telling me, hey, dude, I was in business, I traveled the world, lived in all these super mega metropolis, and then I went back home and my health was fucked. So it's like, were you wealthy? You had all these experiences, all these things, but you had a foundational thing that wasn't in check. So I think just having the mental kind of parameters of understanding that you don't have to neglect your health in order to make money. You don't have to not talk to your mom or your parents for 2 years because you're hustling and grinding in the business. No, there's a place of balance, and that's where I would define wealth.
That's really interesting because, if we were where we are today, we might have come across a podcast that Naval Ravikant released in 2019 or 18, which is...
the one with Joe?
So basically, he did one kind of like on his own based on all his tweets, which is how to get rich
without getting lucky.
Without getting lucky, right? Exactly. And then he went on Joe, and that's how I discovered him, right? Through Joe. And then I went to this first podcast, which is 3 hours and a half. And one of the key points there is money is not going to make you happy, but it's going to help you get to a kind of stage of life where you can then focus on what really matters. And so what he advises is you should kind of make yourself almost miserable to make money as quickly as possible to then get onto the real things in life. But it's not really what you're saying.
Well, I wouldn't say misery, but I would say, how can I make the most amount of money expending the least amount of time? Because time is the valuable asset that allows you to then explore other things. And if you're every single day expending 10, 12 hours just working to make money, then you're neglecting every potential other area of life that is beneficial. I was doing some research as to how the feudal ages kind of operated, and the peasants and the feudal lords and the kings. And you begin to look at the work schedule of the peasants. These motherfuckers only worked 150 days out of the year. They didn't work 300 days out of the year like society teaches us today. So you have the peasants, the working class, by definition, peasant means just working class, back in the day, only working half of the year. So here we are as fiat slaves working 300 days out of the year, assuming that money is the most important thing. When it's all said and done, how much money do you actually need in order to live a wealthy, highly successful, fruitful life? Not a ton of money. You don't have to have billions of dollars to get there.
What's your answer to that?
My answer to that is figure out a level of comfort that matches your lifestyle. And it depends on everybody,
Absolutely.
Right? And then don't overspend. Don't get to the place where you spend because you want to compare yourself to others, and don't fall for the trap of consumerism. If you become a consumerist, you're always going to have to make money in order to spend. But if you're a producer and not a spender, then you're focusing on how can I create things of value in the marketplace that eventually allow for opportunity and money to flourish.
So essentially become a producer and live below your means, which is kind of true freedom. Because if you live below your means,
you don't have to worry.
You're never going to worry. Exactly. You talked about how do I make as much as possible by spending as least time as possible? What are a few answers to that? For example, in this podcast again with Naval, he talks about leverage, right? Talks about financial leverage, human leverage, so human capital, and then you have obviously the one that's like the best today. Code and media.
Yes, I agree. So I was actually with Meow, the co-founder of Jupiter Exchange, at dinner today, and we were talking about what is the single most important super weapon that an entrepreneur can have, and it's leverage,
Yep.
right? And money gives you leverage. So my opinion is some people will value money more than I. What are these individuals? Usually the ones that don't have a lot of money. So I can give them money in exchange for their time and in exchange for their energy. So these people will help me accomplish my goals and my dreams. But now, like Naval says, it gets even crazier because now you can have little bots running around working 24/7. They don't get tired. They don't disobey. They don't clock out. They don't lie about their timesheet. They actually perform, and you can backtrack all of their effort and all of their work, and they can work 24/7. So leverage your money, your resources, your connections in order to automate as many areas of life, both with people and AI bot tools, in order to get to the next level.
And this is what you're doing. focusing on-
100%. Yeah. Capital Club now has about 160 employees full time. About 65 of them are media distribution team. So I'll create a piece of content like this podcast, and it'll probably get, I don't know, over the next year, 100 million views. So I'll distribute that through short form content, and I have people that do that. So instead of being like, okay, let me go out and create 50 pieces of content, I'm just going to create one piece of high value content and then allow other people through paying them to distribute it and utilize their resources, their time, their energy, and their attention towards my goal.
You said 160 people, right?
Yeah.
What's your approach? Because for me, what I really realized is, and it's completely linked to this notion of leverage, but also fixed versus variable costs. And when I made this change in my business, it changed everything. Full-time employees versus contractors, or kind of like remote teams that are hired by the job versus by their time, right? And so if you do that, everything becomes variable and much less risky.
Yes.
How do you approach? Because I think it's more of you're what, 28, 29?
Yeah. 28.
That's like an approach that's much more like from our generation. Whereas, for example, the first company I built in London, like 25 people, I wanted, because I was in the old mindset, the old Swiss mindset. So I was like, I want Swiss quality, which is the freaking most expensive people on earth. And I want them full time because I want the pride of saying, hey, I'm giving a job to these people and participating to their retirement and all that stuff. But then you have all this freaking stress, you know, and it was a consulting business. So it's like the worst type of business, unscalable. And then when I started to make the switch, I realized, man, like this is such a no-brainer. And then you can apply it to anything, right?
So I look at it a little bit different. I look at when I pay people or when I hire people, I'm investing into them, right? So I'm investing into their self-development. I'm investing into their progress. I'm investing into their education. I'm investing into their experience. So how foolish would it be of me to build somebody up for 2 years as a contractor or as somebody that's a freelancer, and then they're going to charge more for their services later on. They're going to go work for somebody else, or they're going to go build their own stuff. I want to create an ecosystem where my people can grow within my organization. It's so hard to find top tier talent, but if you can find top tier talent, I want them to come work for me, and I want them to come work with me. So that means sometimes you have to give them the freedom to operate and to create. Steve Jobs, I think, said, you know, the job of the CEO, the job of the business owners to recruit talent. And if you find A players, just get out of the fucking way and let them operate. So when you see Capital Club, when you see, you know, billions of views online, that's not just Luke. It's people that are super, super developed, helping me accomplish certain goals and dreams. So I see it as, yeah, I have 160 full-time staff members. There is a lot of headaches and overheads and things like that, but they're all fixed cost. And that's one side. 2, I see it as an investment into them long-term. And then 3, I never spend money that I don't have. Right. And that's something that I always kind of pride my company of, is we always underspend so much from what we make, so that, once again, like your personal expenses, you don't have that, oh, how can I get to the next paycheck? I don't want to live that way. I don't want to have to go and raise money or get investors because I can't make it. So I scale in proportion to our income.
Do you think that A players stay or go on to leave and build their own thing once they realize how much leverage personal leverage they have, right?
Depends, because not everybody that's an A player is an entrepreneur, or not everybody that's an A player is a self-starter, and not everybody that's an A player wants to go out and do their own thing, or can take on the risk of going on and, you know, funding a business, building a business, or being a CEO or an executive. Some people are just phenomenal videographers, right? Some people are just phenomenal human resource managers. Some people are just phenomenal accountants. So I just want to polish them, refine them, and then give them a value ladder of scalability within my organization. Eventually that obviously for the high tier individuals leads to shares, leads to options in the company, but that's just inevitable because the goal isn't to own 100% of zero, right? If you own 100% of something that's not worth anything, cool, you're the only guy involved, but you don't have shit. So sometimes you have to share, and that means splitting the pie so that the pie can get bigger. I'm all about sharing, bro.
That's such a key concept, actually. And you have often when you start companies, you might have like 2 or 3 co-founders, and then you have this ego at play, right? Who has more, and like, why would we split equally? And you're like, man, first, it's all about not what happened before, it's all about what happens in the future. And second, 33% of like something much bigger is worth much more than 100% of something much smaller. Absolutely.
And it's also the energy and time thing, right? So if I have co-founders, now I have I have more heads, I have more energy, more time. And that's going, if they're the right people, that's going to accelerate growth and accelerate development, accelerate the achievement of your goals a lot faster.
Absolutely.